What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in effect. Purple State Party, you know what we're doing here. We're up in America, the center, and common sense. I love ya. This one goes out to you. Yeah. All right, so before we get into some of the more pressing news, want to do a few quick ones here. Pager explosion injures thousands in Lebanon, officials say, as Hezbollah blames Israel. Yeah, apparently 15 years ago, Israel set up companies to build pagers and walkie-talkies with explosives built into them in case they ever needed them. They then convinced Hezbollah safest way to communicate was walkie-talkies and pagers, and they set them off. Thousands of people were injured Tuesday and several killed when their pagers exploded almost simultaneously across Lebanon, officials say, with Hezbollah confirming some of its members were wounded and blaming the attack on Israel. Then, next day, Hezbollah walkie-talkies explode in fresh Lebanon blasts, killing 3 and injuring more than 100. Yeah, they confirmed that that's what happened. Large number of people. The Lebanese government also blamed Israel for the explosions, condemning the attack as criminal Israeli aggression. Lebanon's got Hezbollah in there firing rockets into Israel in support of the Hamas attacks of October 7th. These are terrorist groups operating with at least some sort of agreement with the government, or they're just more powerful than the Lebanese government. Hezbollah does have more soldiers than the Lebanese government. Yeah, I found this one pretty funny, 72 virgins. You know, these are terrorist organizations that are fundamental extremist Muslims. And unfortunately, as we've seen, they are also supported by the Muslim community, which is one of the reasons why I have a hard time with that particular religion. They seem to be unable to separate themselves from the terrorists. They seem to celebrate alongside the terrorists when the terrorists have a victory, and they mourn alongside the terrorists when the terrorists get killed. And one of them is in our own government, Rashida Tlaib. She called the pager explosions disgusting. So she's saying that Israel's response to the October 7th attack, which was truly disgusting, is itself disgusting. She is supporting the terrorists. She is mourning alongside the terrorists. That's what she's doing. You have to stand back and be able to distance yourself from the actions of the group. I'm going to vote for Trump, but I don't agree with everything he says. I don't agree with what people like Abbott and DeSantis did with their abortion bans. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with a lot of the homophobia that comes out of the far right. I don't agree with the racism that comes out of the extreme right. I don't celebrate it when it happens, and I don't mourn it when these people get arrested or killed. It's pretty easy to me. But, you know, she said that these pager attacks, which targeted Hezbollah terrorists, were disgusting. And some of the responses I found quite hilarious. You taking the side of Hezbollah members is the least surprising news maybe ever. Disgusting is the terrorists who launched rockets and killed 12 children in Israel. But you don't condemn that. Didn't condemn October 7th. Then they mocked using one of Tlaib's fellow squad members, Ilan Omar's response. From some people did something, they responded. Some beepers did some things. Yeah. The most targeted strike against terrorists, and Rashida still has a problem because Jews. Yeah, because even though she herself, Tlaib, is not a member of these terrorist groups, at least as we know, she still hates Jews because that's the way people were raised in Palestine. That's the kind of shit they have in their head. Disgusting is that the United States allows a jihadi to hold public office. Yeah. Thank you for confirming Lebanon is infested with terrorists who happen to be in grocery stores, barbershops, etc. We're very sorry that your loved ones in Hezbollah will not be able to reproduce. Yeah. Have you tried not firing rockets into Israel every day since October 7th? Another commenter inquired. Yeah. Bronco sums it up pretty good here. This will have to do for now. Yeah, Israel is being attacked by several factions. Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, they're all under Iran, let's be honest. Come on, the honest truth is they're all under Iran. But they're being attacked, and somehow they have found allies in the Democrat Party. They have. People like the current vice president or the former first lady. You know, people like Biden, people like Bernie Sanders. They're on the side of the people who support these people. Because remember, I've said it before. They are too afraid to take on evil, so they form a pact with evil. They act as evil's cheerleaders so that they maybe can avoid evil. You know, one thing I've always advocated is if we're going to go green, we have to go nuclear. And there's a lot of pushback on that. So I found this quite interesting. Microsoft AI needs so much power, it's tapping the site of the U.S. nuclear meltdown, 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island is going to open up one of their reactors, and the only customer is going to be Microsoft. A Microsoft AI farm, I guess you could call it that, requires so much power that it needs a dedicated nuclear reactor. This is why people like myself are not so high on green energy. We're high on other green stuff, but not green energy. Because the requirements just can't be met today by wind and solar. It can't be met reliably. It can't be met cheaply. Nuclear power is even more expensive than natural gas and just your conventional, oil-based fuels. I don't want to fuck up the planet, okay? I don't. I live here. But we need to reassess our views on nuclear power. I mean, the 3 Mile Island happened, I believe, 1979. We haven't had another disaster in the United States since then. And believe it or not, up until 2019, one of the other reactors was still operational there. Nuclear waste is contained. It has to be contained. The waste that comes from solar and wind, batteries, what are we going to do about all that? We're going to have to bury the batteries are just as toxic as nuclear waste in different ways. Nuclear waste is very unlikely to catch fire like we've seen with these lithium batteries. Lithium's a dangerous substance. These batteries that they use to store wind and solar are dangerous. They're very dangerous. They can combust on their own and create their own oxygen to fuel the fire. We've seen this across the board. But I just thought that was interesting. And then, speaking of the green energy and anti-nuclear, Greta Thunberg named Anti-Semite of the Week by Jewish Advocacy Group after her latest arrest at anti-Israel protest. Yeah, she was wearing a kiop, the scarf, and voicing her disdain for the Jewish state. And she was hauled off by Danish police during a demonstration at Copenhagen University. The organization, Stop Anti-Semitism, said she has transformed her activism into a platform for vile Jew hate. And it's true. That's what these people are doing. You have to understand, the terrorists attacked Israel during a ceasefire. There was a ceasefire. The terrorists came in and specifically targeted a music festival attended by young people, took those people hostage, brutally raped these people, murdered them. Israel responds, and immediately everybody is out there. Look at this. The students against the occupation. Nobody was occupying Gaza at the time of the attack. All right? That Israel has agreed to a two-state solution. But Hamas doesn't want that. Hezbollah doesn't want that. Iran doesn't want that. They want to use terrorists who blend into the civilian population to wreak havoc until Israel is removed from the face of the planet. Okay? I don't think that there's any level of racism higher than wanting to remove that particular group from the planet. Now we're going to flip over to things that aren't racist, that were labeled racist. Family of Blackfeet Chief, face of the NFL Redskins for 48 years, wants his image back in the NFL. Oh, yeah. The Washington Redskins. Remember that? We had to change that. But now the descendants want his life story retold. They want to put his face out there in the hopes that it can unify and teach people the value of multiculturalism. The White Calf family has support in Washington, D.C. from one of their Montana senators, while the NFL franchise itself, now known as the Washington Commanders, is making new efforts to honor the team's heritage. Yeah. And it was the whole public pressure that caused the Redskins to change their name was the George Soros funded cancel culture group, the National Congress of American Indians. Why is that fuckwad having anything to do with our native population? I don't get it. The celebrated Blackfeet chief and his life story were canceled even as polls showed 90% of Native Americans supported the team name and the portrait of White Calf. See, there he is right there on the helmet. Proud tradition, a proud team. But where's the racism in that? Simply using his logo and a term that they are fine with, that's not racist. But the George Soros group, a bunch of flimsy white ladies and white guys trying to escape their whiteness, decided that this is what their cause was going to be. This is where they were going to spend their time and money. Not trying to end poverty in America or homelessness in America or try to do something about all of the people that are just dying on drugs. No. We're going to go after an NFL team. And when we find out that 90% of Native Americans supported the team name and the logo, yeah, it doesn't matter. We're smarter than them. You see, you understand, we're rich white folks. We're smarter than all you brown people and all you red people and all you black people. We're smarter than you. We know what to do. We know how to save you. We know what's important to you. Oh, you disagree with us? Well, that's because you're stupid. That's what they said with that. Moving on. And when I talk about the theys and that, it's people like CNBC. You see this here? This on August 12th, Vance wants to raise the child credit to $5,000. Here's why that could be difficult. 4 days later, Harris calls for expanded tax credit of up to $6,000 for families with newborns. Instead of calling her out on just simply taking her opponent's position, they want to label it as brilliant and bipartisan, and we care about babies being born. But when Vance says it, it's a bad idea. It clearly means he hates childless women. That's the kind of shit that we're dealing with. This is an example of how the media is perverting the truth and leading us down a road that none of us are going to want to be on. Socialism and communism works if you're at the top when all of that shit gets instituted. If you're in the middle or in the lower ranks, your life is going to be shit. When you are standing in line for 6 hours for bread, and then the store tells you we're out of bread, that's the life that most of us will be living. The rich people, they'll have bread delivered to their house, right? We just saw it. Microsoft needs power, so Microsoft buys a nuclear reactor. So obviously everybody's heard that there was a second assassination attempt on Trump. I have heard in the media how they like to point out there were no shots fired. Well, that's because the Secret Service fired first. We'll get into that. This happened near his golf course in Florida. It was the second one in 2 months. The plot was foiled while the Secret Service agents walking a hole ahead of Trump's party saw the rifle and opened fire and scared off the gunman. The gunman was eventually tracked down and was arrested by Marin County sheriffs. This is crazy, man. This is absolutely crazy. If they hadn't seen that rifle, we don't know what would have happened. The sheriff who arrested him said he had a detached flat face, so I felt like it wasn't bothering him. He never even questioned him about the reason for being pulled over, despite there being helicopters and police lights everywhere. Yeah, I think they got the right guy, Here you have a past president of the United States, a contender for being the next president of the United States. The guy's out golfing. What the heck? He was out golfing. He's not even on the campaign. They're trying to shoot him in his off time, I guess. I think every American with common sense recognizes, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, this is completely appalling, the sheriff said. They found the guy's bullet-deflecting ceramic plates, not sure what that means, a GoPro camera, and an AK-47. So a serious guy, or not so serious. Court records show that he had a 3-hour standoff with police at his warehouse where he was storing stolen building supplies. And he was using them to buy crack cocaine. So before you start reading into any of these conspiracies, keep in mind, this was a dude who lost his marbles, okay? He's a dude who lost his marbles. He's not an agent for another government. He's just a whack job. Kind of like the last guy. Whack jobs who have been worked into a needless frenzy. This was very illuminating. The son of a alleged would-be assassin says his dad hates Trump. He said his father hates Trump, as every reasonable person does. I don't like Trump either, the son added. But he said his dad is not a violent person and couldn't believe that his father would target the president. Well, he did. The dude was out there in a pink shirt, trying to hide in the woods. So not a very serious attempt. That doesn't negate the fact that it was an attempt. This is the second one. And, you know, we need to look at the root cause of that. And the kid's son, in a rambling text, said this, and I think this bears repeating. I hate this game every 4 years, and I think we all do. And if my father wants to be a martyr to how broken and disassociated the process has become from the real problems and practical solutions, then that's his choice. Okay. South Park said it best. Every 4 years, we're forced to choose between a turd sandwich and a giant douche. And it all stays fucked in the same ways by differing degrees, and we're exhausted and embarrassed by it all. That's why we need Purple State. We need a third party who offers the best of both parties and leaves the bad parts behind. History, common sense, logic, math. We have guideposts that can show us the correct way of doing things, the correct response to things, so that we don't end up in a mess where we add 11 million migrants in 4 years with no fucking plan. We try to switch to all green energy with no fucking plan. They want us to drive electric vehicles. They want us to cook with electricity. They want everything electrical, but they haven't done step one to get more electricity. Here in California, we go into droughts where we're running out of fucking water. We give them money to build reservoirs, and they don't build reservoirs. But yet they're going to tell me what I can drive. They're going to tell me what I can say on the internet. They're going to tell chartered cities that they have to build houses or the government's going to seize control of the city. That's what we've got. An interesting question that was brought up. Experts wonder how out-of-state gunmen knew about Trump's golf game. It was a last-minute decision. How did he know? Well, I think this guy was cuckoo in the cabeza, and I think he was simply waiting out there. Trump golfs on Sunday. He probably knew he was there. You could build a great conspiracy around this dude, but I just think he was a nutcase. I wouldn't be surprised if it came out that he had been there on other Sundays. I don't know this for a fact. I'm just saying. But the main problem is the rhetoric kicked up by the left. The left tells us that words hurt. The left tells us that we got to use little people. We got to use this challenge or that challenge. We can't call them the R word. And we certainly shouldn't misgender people. But the Speaker of the House, the White House spokesperson, Pierre, says it's okay to call Trump a threat to democracy. January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. Because of his role in January 6th, it is okay to say bad things about him that might lead to him getting shot. Right? There you go. Because they have their justification. Hey, if a black person votes Republican, you could use the N-word. If a transgender person supports Trump, oh, you could berate the hell out of them. Right? We've seen it. And that's what they're doing. Do you think political vitriol is putting Trump's life in danger? Yes. Hitler needs to tone down his rhetoric. Threat to democracy. They're the ones that are inciting the violence against him. We're skipping that. We're going certain person free today. So I can't talk about any of that. But I can talk about Gavin. Here we go. Gavin's trying to pass a law that will make refineries store more fuel so that there aren't price spikes. But he can't prove price gouging. This guy, Severin, at UC Berkeley, and we know that's a left-wing place, right? I mean, Berkeley, come on. An economist regarded the state's leading expert on the issue, parsed the differential in a 2023 paper, pointing out that California's direct and indirect taxes on fuel amount to nearly $1 a gallon, 70 cents higher than the national average of such taxes. The state's unique fuel blend to battle smog adds another dime. There is a surcharge of about 43 cents a gallon that cannot be directly attributed to crude oil prices. But what that reflects is the high cost of doing business in California: rent, electricity, other utilities, wages, regulatory overhead. And yes, believe it or not, they also have to make a profit. I get it. I get it. The corporations make obscene amounts of money. But what are they supposed to do? Not make money? So he wants to put in this order that they have to put more fuel into storage. But the problem is that how can they easily expand their storage? But storage is not without its cost, which could drive retail prices higher. The state's Energy Commission declared in a recent analysis that Newsom's proposal has a potential to artificially create shortages in the downstream market and increase average prices. So as Gavin Newsom is talking about price controls, he's trying to drive the price up. And as this article rightfully points out, moreover, there are genuine crises that Newsom and the legislatures have been unwilling or unable to resolve, such as our abysmal low test scores in reading and math, the ever-rising number of homeless people. We went up again this year. The nation's highest level of poverty. Whoa. And an uncertain water supply. Remember the reservoirs? In other words, they're focused on the wrong things. They're focused on their agenda instead of what Californians need. And it's the same party that's running the country. They're focused on their agenda and not the American people. So why in the fuck would Californians vote for more of Newsom and his party? Why would Americans vote for the lady who shall not be mentioned and her party? Makes no sense. This is talking about one of their things where they were just following their agenda. The Biden administration's $5 billion clean school bus program uses nearly 400% more taxpayer dollars per school bus and benefits the Chinese Communist Party. A House report, from the House Committee of Energy and Commerce. The EV supply chain is roughly 90% on China, so the money's going there. China, who uses slaves. China, who has an appalling human rights record. And it's costing America. These buses are almost 4 times the cost, nearly $400,000 a bus. Couldn't that money be? We're buying nearly a $500,000 bus, and teachers have to supply their own crayons. That's ass backwards. That's putting your agenda above the needs of the citizens. We're not even going to get into this. But here you go. Biden administration pumps $900 million into green school buses as America's students continue to struggle. You're going to class on a clean bus and you ain't going to learn shit? The fuck is the point of that? Why would people vote for this? I understand. I see all the flaws of the Republican Party. I don't know if the Republicans have a better plan. I live in a completely Democrat-controlled state. I don't see the differences between Republicans and Democrats on a state level. I haven't seen that. I don't think I've seen that in my adult life. All right? But anything's got to be better than that. It's an overall failure, says the Republican Congresswoman, Kathy McMorris Rogers, who chairs the House Committee on Energy and Commerce. The program led by the radical Biden EPA props up a market that relies heavily upon the supply chain dominated by the Chinese Communist Party. So our tax dollars are going to our greatest enemy. And some of these dumb fucking buses, they go about 120 miles on a single charge, which is fine for some situations, completely unacceptable for others. Propane models can travel 400 miles. Okay, so that's a little bit better. In cold areas, they lose a third of their range. So from 120 miles, they're going to be down to 80 miles, if my math is correct. And even worse, electric school buses are also increase the risk of fraud. The EPA relies solely on self-certified applications and estimates created by the applicants. And it has resulted in millions of dollars in wasteful spending. The EPA failed to account for the considerable electric infrastructure upgrades that electrifying a school bus fleet would require, potentially leading to delays for schools in utilizing their new buses. Buy a bus, you can't even use it. But back to the fraud there. For example, the EPA didn't require documentation for some of the required application information and allowed contractors enthused of the opportunity to receive federal funding to apply on behalf of unknowing school districts. So you have companies that are contracting for the, Brunswick Elementary or Brunswick, school district. Hey, stuff gets trapped up there sometimes. So they are applying on behalf of a school district. They get the checks, they supply the buses, the schools like, where the fuck are we supposed to plug them in? Where's the plan? If this was being done with a reasonable timetable and a plan, maybe I wouldn't be so pissed off. Right now, there's a lot of stories out there about deep fakes. I think you should watch the Babylon Bee, Gavin Newsom's endorsement of the woman who shall remain nameless for this episode. It's a very interesting deep fake. But what the interesting part is not the realism, not the fact that they got the voice, all that. No, it's that it's speaking the truth. That these people are willing to cheat, lie, to further their agenda while fucking everybody else over. But anyhow, the LA Times, it's an interesting one because they're not covering up. I don't get it. Maybe they're coming around. A flyer promoting a homelessness ballot measure leaves out a key fact. It's a tax increase. Like they say, it has to be on the sample ballots, but in ads, there's no requirement to provide all relevant information. So while you're out there passing something that's unconstitutional, the Deepfake Act, your state, Gavin, says that you could put out flyers that have no requirements to provide relevant information. Yeah, that sounds great. It's a typical political strategy. Avoid negative aspects and focus on the positive aspects. If that means not mentioning this is an actual tax, then it's left to the voters to do their own research. California politicians have done this. When they wanted a gas tax, the ability to raise gas taxes whenever they wanted. Remember, we're 70 cents above the national average. They wrote it up as a road safety act, which it wasn't. It was we could raise your taxes. This tax to raise money for homelessness is a small sales tax increase. Okay, that's great. We already gave them money in Prop 1. And what have they done with it? What have they done with it? They've squandered it. Look at this shit. Mind-boggling. Billions gone and little to show for it years after rampant COVID fraud. Federal watchdogs and other reports estimate anywhere from $200 billion to $500 billion was lost to waste, fraud, and abuse across various federal and state COVID-era programs. Insiders, including those who worked inside of these agencies, conspire with organized crime factions and other individuals to defraud state programs, and the states did little to do with them. Some states even hired individuals convicted of identity theft to process UI claims. The estimated amounts of waste, fraud, and abuse is mind-boggling, said Pete Sessions, a Republican from Texas, on the subcommittee for government operations and the federal workforce. Okay. $500 billion, maybe more. Much of it lost to criminal actors and our enemies. That bears repeating. $500 billion lost to criminal actors and our enemies, often using comically simple tactics. Our enemies. Does that mean Iran, Russia, North Korea, China? Did they steal money from our programs? And we just let them do it? A lot of them just stole unemployment dollars. One Inspector General report from Small Business Administration estimated at least $200 billion was lost. $200 billion. That is considerable. These are the people that we trust to run our state and our government, our federal government, and we reelect these people? When are they going to be held accountable for this? We have real crises going on in America. And while Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden have wasted billions on their green agenda, they're also losing billions. $200 billion nationwide at least was lost to fraud, and nobody's going after it. And when we do, our own government comes against us. California voters are fed up with crime and apparently inaction by Democrats. Notice how they put apparently inaction by Democrats. No, the Democrats in California have not done anything about crime. That green, yeah, force you to drive an EV, sure. Get rid of your gas stove, sure. But they vehemently oppose the anti-retail theft measure on the November ballot. But they're being ignored by California voters. The California voters are ahead by 45 points. Okay? As it stands right now, it's 71 to 26 in favor. And why? Because 3 decades ago, 30 years ago, California was over on the right with the war on drugs. And I remember that. You know, this is one time when I saw a Republican way of thinking, conservative way of thinking, winning out. We were on the right with the war on drugs and a tough 3 strikes act. Then we gradually moved left by dramatically reducing punishment. And now, here we are. And Newsom, who supported Prop 47, doesn't want to go back. We don't need to go back to a broken policy of the last century. Mass incarceration has been proven ineffective and is not the answer. Well, neither is your answer. The George Gascon way of doing things. Okay? You can't be nice to criminals. Mass incarceration was effective because at least the criminals were locked up and in a jail. If you need more jails, make more jails. We need more reservoirs and we need more jails. We don't need more fucking solar plants and windmills. And one of the reasons why that law was such a win for criminals is because reducing these to misdemeanors means it falls into this. Misdemeanor arrests are harder to make because a cop must witness a crime or possess a judge's warrant. Anyway, judges began freeing petty thieves, so cops stopped responding to shoplifting complaints, merchants ceased bothering to report the crimes, and smash and grab thefts increased. And that's where it is. I'm skipping through some stuff. Gavin Newsom lied about his the fast food jobs. He claimed that we had added 11,000 new jobs. But in reality, the most accurate thing shows that they lost about 6,000. Pretty big swing. And one of the ways that it's done is the most accurate way of judging job numbers is seasonally adjusted. Newsom was using non-seasonally adjusted. In other words, during the summertime, lots of places hire extra employees. Think Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, love Knott's Berry Farm, Magic Mountain, SeaWorld, whatever. They hire more employees. So the fast food industry around those areas hires more people. So the numbers go up, but then they're let go at the end of the summer. Lots of people understand that. It's called summer jobs. So this is a great example of what numbers are you using? If you use the numbers that support your point, but are not based on actual math or actual logic, common sense, and all that good stuff, then you're lying. And meanwhile, Gavin Newsom says, hey, I don't want any deep fakes. But he's deep faking because he's taking the report that gives him the win, even though that's not really the most accurate report. Because again, they don't care. They simply don't care. California, the elite in California want it for California to be for the elite and the people who clean their toilets. If they don't eat at Burger King, all the Burger Kings can piss off. That's the way they look at it. And they try to cover it up. Here's some numbers about what's going on with fast food in in California. 90% of owners are less likely to expand in California. 74% say there's an increase in the likelihood of shutting down their restaurants. 67% of the respondents say the wage law will cost each location at least $100,000 per year. So what's the point? Why do it? I mean, Heart House is closed down. Shake Shack couldn't make it here. If you're spending all of that on your workforce, an extra $100,000 per year, and then you've got all the California taxes, the gas taxes, these taxes, those taxes, this tax will make you feel good tax. Well, people are going to leave. It's hard to imagine those things. But remember, there was a time where it was hard to imagine Detroit turning into what Detroit is. It's hard to imagine that we're going to put windmills up and down our coastline while talking about the environment, killing whales, killing the view. That's the kind of stuff that's going on. And it comes primarily from one party. And the problem that I have the most with that party, the Democrats, is that people like Rashid Tlaib support Hezbollah. The vice president wants price controls. The governor of California wants to tell me that I can't drive a gas vehicle. The governor of California wants to tell me that it's okay that he shut all the businesses down except for the ones that he liked. He likes to tout that we're the fifth largest economy, even though we have some of the worst test scores. California now has some of the worst schools and the worst test results in the nation. The poor people, the homeless people, the illegal immigrants, the drug addicts, they've just moved to California to get free handouts because we have a political leader who doesn't give a shit about the citizens. They only care about their agenda. And that's why I urge people to not fall for the left's agenda, not fall for their tactics to get a certain person nominated. Stop falling for it. Start thinking that we need to move away from these two parties. The sooner we can, the better. Right now is not a great time to do that because it might allow the left to come in. And they're scary. And I say that legitimately. I legitimately am scared if we continue down this path where it can lead. But hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around this long. Like, subscribes, and all that. I'm Kid Copious, Purple State Party. And so are you. Love one another. Vote with your head, not with your heart. And whenever it just gets to be way too much, dance it out. Forever, sister.